We've all heard the cliche that politics is a team sport, but when you look closely at how our local communities actually run, it isn't played on some pristine professional field. It's played right in our own neighborhoods, and winning or losing comes down to the unglamorous, everyday blocking and tackling of local policy. For decades, Jared Eborn watched that game from the press box. As a longtime sports journalist and communications professional, he spent years analyzing Utah's political field from the safety of the media booth. Eventually, Jared decided to step directly onto the political playing field. He ran and was elected as a secretary for the Salt Lake County Democratic Party Executive Committee. He then ran for Murray City Council. He didn't win, but he learned a lot about what it takes to run a campaign like this and pivoted into running for Salt Lake County Council in District 3, narrowly losing during the 2026 Democratic Convention. We talk a lot here at Around the Counter about building prosperity and nurturing curiosity in our very own backyards. And the truth is, the decisions made by county committees and city councils impact the actual reality of our daily lives, everything from our school budgets to park upgrades, impacting all of us far more than the national shouting matches we see on our phones every time we open up social media. With me today to demystify how the local political machine actually works and how everyday citizens can finally pull up a chair to the counter is Jared Eborn. Welcome Around the Counter, Jared.
Thanks, Molly. Thanks for having me. Glad to have a chance to sit down and talk with you.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So before we jump into this conversation, I have to say, was this the most boring Giro d'Italian you ever seen, or was it just me?
Road cycling has gotten a little bit predictable. So yes, in some ways it was boring, but it's still very exciting. There's two or three names that are always at the top, and so kind of the Giro this year wasn't. It's rarely the race that people pay attention to, but yeah, it was. It could have been a little bit more exciting, but I'm excited to see the rest of the season roll out this year.
Yeah, I will say, like, we have a localish favorite here at the Jones household. Sepp Kuss, he won Saturday's stage towards Piancavallo. So he has now won a stage in all three Grand Tours, which, wow!
Yeah.
As a Colorado boy, I'm claiming him for the West. My brother went to high school with him. I love to see an American be so competitive on the European cycling circuit because I think that it's a sport that is incredibly popular somewhere else. And, for the two of us who love it, it's just so fun to see an American and a localish boy do so well.
Right. Sepp has raced here in Utah. It's not too many years back that the Tour of Utah was a big thing. And he raced here. He won stages. He grew up racing basically just across the border in Colorado. And so he's done a lot of racing and riding in Utah. So he's familiar with us. Yes, let's claim him at least as a Western United States guy. There's not a lot of elite World Tour level cyclists coming from the United States these days. So if we can grab onto one, especially when he's not just a World Tour cyclist, but he's one of the elite guys, has a chance, if everything goes right, to win a stage here and there and potentially even challenge in the GC. So I'm excited to follow Sepp Kuss as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I'm looking ahead to the Tour de France, and I'm just like, okay, so Sepp needs a stage win as well. Looking forward to that. Jonas is obviously going to be fighting Tade, but wouldn't it be incredible for our homeboy Kuss to get a stage win? So, fingers crossed.
I do wish we had some more Utah guys in the Pro Tour back in the days of Dave Zabriskie and Levi Leipheimer. Some of those local guys, even back to Marty Jemison, it would be wonderful to see somebody break into the Pro Tour. I think our next big chance for that is a young man named Vigo Moore. He grew up here in Utah. He's been racing basically in the minor leagues in Europe for a few years, but he's a young guy. I think he's 20, 21, 22 now, and may break into the Pro Tour. If things go well for him, I would love to see that, just because, yes, he's got Utah roots.
Love that. So based on the conversation we're having, you obviously are a sports guy. You were a sports writer for years. So what did you cover?
Like you said, I was a sports journalist for almost 20 years. It started when I was a student up at Utah State University. The Salt Lake Tribune reached out to the student newspaper up there. I was the sports editor of the student paper, and they were like, we want to hire what was called a stringer. It's basically a correspondent or a bureau type writer that was based in Logan. And so they hired me. I covered the Aggies. So for a couple of years, I was like in college, but covering a Division I college for the Salt Lake Tribune. Got a lot of bylines, learned a ton, but also covered everything from high school sports to community sports. I broke a lot of news. That was the most exciting. It is breaking news, whether it was, let's see, what was it, about 12 years ago, or 11 years ago, the pack or the what was then the Mountain West Conference and the WAC conference were falling
Rip.
apart, and there was a lot of people, Utah jumping to the Pac-12 and Utah State getting left behind again and stuff like that. And so I was breaking a lot of that news. It was really fun. But yeah, so I've covered everything after my time at Utah State. I moved down here to Salt Lake, where my wife attended medical school at the U of U, and so I jumped from the Trib to the Deseret News. Again, covered college sports, high school sports, helped out with professional sports or Olympic sports. You name it, I was game for it and eager to get my chop. Just showed that I was a team player, so to speak, for the newspaper. And
What was it
after
like?
that, moved up. Okay, go ahead.
What was it like to be on the sidelines for all those games? Like you mentioned the Olympics, like that must have been really cool.
It was very cool. I didn't actually cover the Olympics, but I started covering Olympic sports shortly after the Olympics. I also covered some Paralympics. So my wife did her medical residency up in Idaho, in Pocatello. There was a young man that was in the Paralympics and won, I think it was a silver medal in downhill skiing, and he was, awesome there. We also had this goes way back, but there was basically the pioneer or the grandmother of women's pole vaulting. Her name was Stacy Dragila. She was a student athlete at Idaho State University and won the gold medal in the Sydney Olympics. I covered her breaking world records. It seemed like once a month. So
Wow.
I got a lot of experience covering a lot of different things, and it was a ton of fun. I also got to work with people that were very interesting. I got to make good friends across the country, and so yeah, I enjoyed it. But like all good things, it came to an end when the newspaper industry collapsed.
So did you cover politics at all, or were you just only sports?
I was pretty much just sports.
Okay.
But
That must have been a really interesting transition from being the guy asking the questions to being the candidate being asked the questions. Like, talk to me about what that transition was like for you.
it wasn't that unusual. I mean, I kind of, as a sports reporter, if you listen to sports radio, they'll have guests on all the time. So I was occasionally brought in to talk about the teams or the athletes that I was covering. So I would be interviewed by radio journalists. And so that wasn't that big of a difference. While I didn't actually cover politics, I did a little bit. When you're at a smaller newspaper, everybody helps out everywhere. So when I was up in Idaho, at the Idaho State Journal, every election season, basically, the whole newsroom gets together and covers the city elections, the county elections. And so I did some of that. I pinch hit and go cover a city council meeting or something along those lines when that beat reporter was not available. They're like, can anybody do it? And I'd go and help out. So not a big deal.
So you mentioned a little bit that the local and national newsrooms have had this pretty dramatic shift. And I think anybody who's been alive has seen that, right? Like everything from the demise of the Walter Cronkite model of having, like a singular unified news person that's doing a bipartisan news, to the rise of Fox News, to the sort of evolution of social media and the way that people are getting their news today. And I'm curious, as a former media guy, how do we keep local voters curious about what's happening at their county council meetings, at their Idaho city council meetings, especially when like the national and lately the international politics are so pressing and constantly vying for your attention.
Yeah, I think the national things and even local things that are very salacious or get big headlines, like, oh, Kevin O'Leary wants to put a data center on the shores of the Great Salt Lake. That's obviously a huge story that's even getting a lot of national attention. But like you were saying, I mean, it's important that everybody out there knows what's happening in your city council meeting, because that affects your day to day. Yes, the Great Salt Lake drying up will affect your life in enormous ways, but so will funding your local schools, so will funding your parks and recreation department, or your local police department, or just your public works. I mean, if your sewer breaks down, your life is pretty much screwed. I live on a street that's a beautiful street, but we've had a couple of water main breaks. That's a city council or a county council type function that if these cities are not running effectively, the repairs don't happen, the upkeep doesn't happen. And so it's important that we follow along. So like you said, it's crazy to see how modern news and media has evolved. Some ways it's evolved quite well. In other ways, it's really struggled. Newsrooms back 10, 15 years ago, when I was just exiting daily journalism, they hadn't learned how to pivot properly to online media. They were still trying to push a print product, which I get. I mean, that's what they've done for decades, centuries. And frankly, I think one of the problems with modern newsrooms is they started giving away the product online and nobody was going to buy it. And so that's why you've seen so many people leave the profession or lose their jobs in that profession, because they basically, you can't put that toothpaste back in the tube. Once it's a free product, it's really hard to, it's almost impossible to make it a pay-for product. I applaud the Salt Lake Tribune, what they're doing. It's now free, but that's because they shifted to a nonprofit model. They've done some really cool, innovative things in order to try to fund this shift from a print daily product to a print once or twice a week product to everything is online but behind a paywall, to now let's just put everything out there and just beg for donations to see if we can keep it going.
Well, and don't they also have some major donors? Like, aren't the Huntsmans also fronting quite a hefty sum for them?
Right. Yeah. And that's what, I mean, thank you to the Huntsman family and anybody else that's donating to keep journalism, especially independent journalism. You mentioned Fox News a little bit ago. They might be independent, but they are a propaganda or agenda-driven media organization. I think the Salt Lake Tribune and many others honestly try to just get it right. They just try to tell the truth. So I'm a huge fan of NPR, PBS, and if we can keep those models going, that's important. But there's a few hundred city councils here in this state. There's not a few hundred reporters to cover all of them. So I would be very interested to see and hopeful that maybe city councils or county councils or mayors or whoever can find a way to disseminate accurate, timely information that's actionable by their constituents, rather than, oh, we just passed our budget, here's what it is. You missed out. You didn't come to the public comment period. Too bad, it's over. Here's what the new budget is. So I think if we can, I love independent journalists like Brian Schott and some of the others that are doing great work, but we need to see, I believe we need to see another evolution in journalism as far as civic reporting and governance goes. So
you sit in an interesting position, I think, for some of this. You are the secretary for the Utah State Democratic Party, and I think that brings... Oh, Salt Lake County, not the
Yes.
state?
No, I'm
Okay.
not the state. I'm just with the county.
Okay, great.
But
Thank you for clarifying. I totally had elevated
similar
you.
roles. Just we're buddies. We hold each other's hands through everything. But yeah, I'm with the Salt Lake County.
So
Dem-
what does that job do and what does that mean to you? And I guess also through this lens of like media, how do you use the media to help advance what you do with the party?
Well, like you said, we try to use the media to help inform people. That said, everybody at the Salt Lake County office and most of the people at the Utah State office, we are volunteers. We don't get paid for this. We're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts or something along that lines. But with that said, so my journey getting into politics, I mean, I've been observing and commenting for years on social
Commenting where?
media. On social media, whether it's used to be huge on Twitter. I was one of the OGs in Utah sports media that adopted social media, which was one of the reasons I was really surprised that I got laid off. But hey, that's neither here. But yeah, using Twitter. Threads is now kind of my favorite because Twitter/X has become untenable for me personally. But whether it's Threads or Blue Sky or Facebook or Instagram, there are so many channels that we can use. I mean, you can use Reddit, you can use all sorts of Substack, you can create newsletters. So it's important to get that information out on as many channels as necessary. You're doing a podcast. That's another excellent way to reach out and communicate with people. Even if that means you throw it up on YouTube, which we will be there in a little bit, or you just do some shorts and they're on your Instagram reels or Facebook reels or something like that. It's important, in my opinion, to create, and you're doing a wonderful job, short, digestible, understandable bits of information that people can then not just say, oh, that's good info, but then they can take action on it, especially if we're able to get that information in front of them before it's too late. So,
Okay, so you have this
yeah.
interesting perspective. You were a journalist, you are an elected official in the party, and you know, just like I know, how bad politicians are at talking like a normal human being. So I guess one of the things I'm curious about is why does political organizing rely so heavily on jargon? Things like delegates, central committees, caucuses, like that, I think for a lot of people feels like a bit of a barrier to entry. So I'm curious how you think we can translate some of these things so that a newcomer feels invited around the counter rather than locked out of
Sure.
the process.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think speaking in conversational tones is important. We're doing that right now, but that's just you and me. We're having a conversation that's being recorded. But yes, when I was running for office and I had to stand up in front of the Salt Lake County convention, it was a little intimidating even for me, even though I've got plenty of experience in public speaking. It was intimidating because I was doing a sales pitch. I was talking to people instead of talking with people. I like to think of myself as a pretty good communicator, but honestly, I'm so much better talking with people than I am talking to people.
Yeah,
And so
I think
politicians have to talk to people. That's just part of it. But yes, it would be wonderful if some of them spoke in a more realistic or personable tone instead of here I'm spitting out the talking points. And I get it. That's what they kind of have to do to get through saying here's what is happening with this piece of legislation. It's hard to have a personal conversation because we might have 45 minutes to an hour for us right here today, but when Senator Luz Escamilla is standing up in front of a microphone to talk about what the Utah Senate Dems are doing, She doesn't have 45 minutes. She's maybe got 45 seconds. And so that's really a challenge. I think she does a great job. I'm not saying anything about her. I'm just using her name because
Yeah.
she's the leader. But yeah, so if we can have more genuine, like this is coming from my heart instead of coming from my sheet of paper that's in front of me that has the talking points, I think that connects with people and helps them understand a little bit better.
So you've been a candidate and you
Mm-hmm.
also got elected to a countywide seat. What are some of the pieces of advice that you give to other candidates who are going to engage with the media, engage with voters, engage with large crowds or audiences?
Well, unfortunately, most candidates are not going to engage with the media. I didn't have any reporters call me. I did
You
have one
didn't?
email from, nope. I had one email from the Salt Lake Tribune. It was just an email with a form letter or,
Really?
a handful of questions. I also had, when I ran for city council, I had the city journals
Hmm.
also do the same thing. Just here's an email with 10 questions. Answer these for us, please.
You know,
So I
that
didn't have any
surprises me.
live. Yeah.
That surprises me. When I ran for city council in 2023 here in Salt Lake City, I got interviewed by the Trib and by Axios. Um,
Hmm.
like they
And,
both.
and And
Go
I
ahead.
think that's because you were running for Salt Lake City and I was running for Murray City. Not
But don't
that
you think that
Murray,
Murray is just as important as Salt Lake?
to everybody in Murray it is. But yeah, we don't have I mean, outside of the city journals, we don't have a regular dedicated news service that's Murray centric.
Huh.
We have a monthly newspaper, which I thought was kind of interesting because they published all those Q&As after the primary ballots had already been sent out. So the ballots had been in people's hands for 2 weeks before they even got a chance to read those. And and that's just the nature of, unfortunately, the nature of that business is they send out a monthly thing. They had those questions well before primary time, but
Hmm.
they didn't send the responses or post them on their website until the primary election part was already mostly over. So I think that's something that maybe would be better if the limited news organizations maybe had somebody that was and again that's a staffing and a funding thing. They can't afford to have somebody assigned to cover Murray, but maybe if there's a designated fundraiser, whatever, or a philanthropist that really loves local news, they can have somebody that focuses on all the smaller things. I know
So,
that the
Jared,
Trib,
are you looking for a job?
if the Trib wanted me to do that, I would be very interested. So hi, uh, but yeah, uh, I'm kind of disappointed in the state of local journalism, but it's not just local, it's national. There's
Hmm.
just not enough funding to actually cover all the important things that are happening. And again, that's part of that is because the money in, money out scenario with newspapers and news organizations was completely disrupted, and it's unfortunately not going to get much better for a long, long time.
So, shifting gears a little bit, I'd like to talk with you and dig in more about what it's like to be a candidate.
Sure.
So, I think my first question is I was on Instagram earlier today answering some comments, and this person, they said something to the effect of like, "Oh, I really wish that we had someone who represented us better." And I asked them, I said, "Well, why don't you run?" And they said, "Oh, I've always thought about doing that." And I think that's a really cool moment for people. And so
Hmm.
I'm curious, as just a regular guy, how
Sure.
can other
Well,
people like you, specifically women and newcomers who might feel a little alienated by national political toxicity, find a joyful entryway into local civic life?
well,
And
and that's where local is important. And I felt very unqualified even to run for city council.
did you?
Even I did.
Why?
I because I hadn't been super involved in community stuff. I mean, I followed it. I was an active person in lots of different ways, but I was not like going to city council meetings. I
Mm,
wasn't. the county council or planning commission meetings. So I didn't feel like I was, and maybe it's because I have a permanent case of imposter syndrome. But I just felt unqualified. But the more I looked at it, I was like, if Lauren Boebert can run for Congress and get elected, I'm more than qualified. And with that said, there's so many people that I have talked to that I'm like, man, you are so smart. You should totally get involved.
You hear that, listeners? You're very
Yeah,
smart. You should totally run for office.
honestly, there's so many smart people that are smart. They're intelligent. They're caring. They care a lot about their neighbors and their community. And I think people are afraid, and I understand it because it is a little bit toxic, especially on the state level or national level. But it's not so bad on the local level. And if I were running for Murray City Council again, I don't think it would be, I think I would be much more prepared. But you mentioned getting more women involved. One of the last things I think any political office or system needs is more 50-something gray-haired white dudes running for office. While I'm not ashamed that I ran for office, I wish that there were people other than me that also stepped up. Because my wife, she'll never run for office, but my wife is one of the smartest people that I think anybody out there will ever know. My daughter, I have a daughter that she was this close to considering running for state school board. She's a school teacher. She has 2 master's degrees. She's a social studies teacher in secondary. So she's super, super smart, but she also has three small children that she's like, I just can't do it right now. And part of it is because she was afraid, understandably so, that people would come after her. And I hate that that's part of anybody's consideration into whether or not they can run for office. It's really one of the worst parts of our 24/7 social media stratosphere that we all live in, is people can just attack you behind, their keyboard warriors, and they can just go after you. And it's scary to some people.
Yeah.
And I get that. I had, not a lot, but I have people come at me and try to dox me, which is not that hard to do because I use my real name in on my social media accounts because, well, back to my journalism days, that was important to me to actually put my name behind everything that I write or everything that I say. But yeah, it's a little bit intimidating, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to be online 24/7 yourself. There are strategies where you can be an active social media presence without being there all the time, and you can communicate with your constituents, with your voters, and with the community at large in an informational sharing way that you don't even have to respond to the haters.
Okay.
I was disappointed. Yeah, go ahead.
So you've actually made several runs for political office. 2025 Murray Murray City Council. This year you ran for Salt Lake County at large, and this has meant knocking on thousands of doors of your literal neighbors, right? To go to the point of you're not that hard to find. So in an era where you said this, where everyone says we're hopelessly divided, you've got, keyboard warriors coming at you. I will tell you, I am over here preaching the gospel of neighborism, which, to quote myself, is defined as, quote, the radical decision to prioritize the human being standing 3 feet away from you over the abstract other projected onto a screen. In a world where political discourse is designed to categorize us into neat opposing boxes, the ultimate resistance isn't found in a sharper debate point. It is found in the niche, small scale banding together of people who refuse to let their neighbors become political abstractions. AKA, knowing your neighbors is an incredible way to be connected to a place, to people, and to feel more at home. Even if someone has a different political opinion from you, they still matter. So, like, you have these conversations with people. You've gone, you've put your name on a ballot, you've knocked on a stranger's door. So, what have these conversations on porches and in ball fields taught you about your community, about Murray?
Well, so like you said, I live in Murray. When I ran for city council, it was basically right about now, 1 year ago, that
Mm-hmm.
I ran for city council. There were four people in the primary. I advanced in the primary to the general election. I actually, it was one thing, posting social media videos or informational slideshows and all this stuff about, hey, let's build new parks and yada yada. But the best part of it, like you said, was the door knocking. I put in, if I was tracking just because I was curious, I put in about 500,000 steps in my city council race. I don't know, I'm sure I didn't get to every door, but I tried to get to every street and every door within my city council district that was actually had a chance to vote for me twice. I tried to make 2 rounds. So I had,
When I actually ran through a pair of shoes. Like I had to buy
Mhm.
new shoes in the middle. I put so many
Yeah,
miles on mine.
and it was, yeah, I got a little sunburned and stuff, but I had a lot of really good conversations.
What were some
Um,
of those conversations like? I mean, I think my favorite memory from knocking on a door for my campaign is I walked up to this house. It was in the Sugar House area, and it was a fenced yard, and there was no sign that was like no trespassing, no soliciting. So I was like, okay, I do like to be a little cognizant of this. Maybe someone doesn't want me to enter, but this doesn't seem to have signs. So I open the gate and I take 2 steps into the yard. And this person, I never saw a face. I just see a door open with a hand, and an itty bitty little chihuahua comes screaming out of the door like, yep, 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 yep. And I like backed out really quick and closed the door and was like, okay, noted. Like, no soliciting.
yeah, yeah, no soliciting. I tried to be respectful of that. If I
Yeah,
saw no
same.
soliciting, I had flyers, I would just slide it into the door and totally respect that.
Yeah.
But if I could, I would love to talk to people. It was awesome. So yes, I'm a Democrat. I would target, so to speak, houses that I've looked at. They have the little indicators like this house believes in science and whatever,
Mm.
or an ally or a pride flag type thing. Pe- Homes where I felt like I would have a better chance of talking to a likely voter or somebody that I had something in common with. And not that that's the only people I wanted to, but I had some amazing conversations one on one. But I'll tell you the best moments from running for city council were when I had like in home little cottage meetings where somebody that was a friend or somebody that reached out to me and said, hey, I like you, I want to vote for you, I want to support you as well, but I can't give you $1,000 or whatever. What can I do to help support you beyond putting a yard sign up? I was like, hey, why don't you just invite your neighborhood to your backyard or your living room and we can just sit down and talk. Those were the best conversations. And I mean, I got to know people. They got to know me. We didn't see eye to eye on everything because, I mean, it was, 10, 12 people sitting around a picnic table in somebody's backyard or a fire pit. And we sat and talked about things that they cared about. And frankly, I got my eyes opened quite a bit in some of those. Not that I felt like I was ignorant, but I got different perspectives and was able to understand where voter A was coming from. They are a senior citizen. I'm getting closer, but I'm not a senior citizen right now. So I don't have the same perspective of I'm getting property taxed out of the house that I've lived in for 40 years type of conversation. Or I get somebody that's like really concerned because we've heard rumors that our neighborhood school is going to be closed down because they're losing enrollment, or
Mm-hmm.
they're worried about too many, high density housing units going up in what felt in the past as a strictly single family home residential neighborhood. And they're concerned about the quality of life or the traffic that might bring. They're concerned about everything from the speeds on their, from cars on their residential streets to, we saw some homeless people down on the Jordan River Parkway. What are you going to do about that? And so, yeah, those conversations where you've got 10, 15 people throwing little ideas, it helps you understand where they're coming from. You're able to communicate and share your vision. If you're going to run for a city council or a county council or something, you have to have a vision, and you have to hopefully be able to persuade people to buy into your vision. And the only way I think you can do that is to establish some mutual empathy. Empathy is not a dirty word, in my opinion. I'm really kind of sad that one political side is trying to turn empathy into a negative. But that's what we need from our leaders, is to have empathy for our communities. So learning what my neighbors had, what their concerns were, I was able to show them, hopefully, that I have empathy and that I care about some of the same things they care about. Even if our visions aren't perfectly aligned, 99% of everybody in this community wants the same thing. And so
here
yeah.
at Around the Counter, we are organized around three main pillars of joy, curiosity, and prosperity. When I started this company, those were the three things that I felt like were really important to be talking about. And, to be talking about politics through those lenses, because I think that those three things help build a community up. They increase neighborism, they increase joy, they increase prosperity. And I think that all of that is done through the lens of curiosity. So I'm curious, these things I think are core to creating a positive community that wants to build a better city. And for me, these are things like incredible parks. I mean, I don't know if you saw CityCast Salt Lake's parks map. That's awesome. I'm on a quest to take all my nieces to all of them. But it's also some of the dirtier things like maintained sewer systems, direct access to local politicians, and then some of the things that I think people think directly of, like really good biking and hiking trails. I mean, we have some world-class biking and hiking and skiing here. And then also, some of the more nuts and bolts like small business support. So when you're having these conversations with people on their doorsteps at the cottage community meetings, like, how does good local policy breed prosperity and bring an entire community along with you, regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum?
Well, thankfully, on a city level, the political spectrum is not as much a factor. I mean, a lot
Why
of
not?
people. It's obviously they're nonpartisan races. We're not Republicans versus Democrats so much we are a little bit, but it's not so profound on the city, at least in Murray. Maybe it's a little bit more in Salt Lake City, where it's not just a little suburb. It's the hub for the whole state and region, frankly. But I found that yes, there is a political divide in some ways, especially if you just sit and listen to what people are saying on social media. But if you go to the city council meeting or even to the county council meeting, you're still going to find people that, even on the opposite side of that aisle, that in general want good things to happen for the city or for the county. And they try hard to work that way. Unfortunately, sometimes we elect people that are a little bit more ideologically driven and want to, for lack of a better word or description, I'm sorry, Republicans, if you're going to try to wipe out DEI, or if the word woke is super offensive to you or something like that, city governance is probably not where you should be be focusing on, because you're not honestly trying to help people. You're trying to enforce your will on people. And I don't think that that's the proper role of city government. I think
So, what is the proper role of city government?
city government, I think, is to make life better on a daily basis, everyday life better. And yes, there's some. It's all politics, and so yes, there's some left versus right or something that works into that. But when the potholes on our street are not Democratic or Republican issues. Our parks and recs rarely have anything to do with anything that's Republican or Democratic. These are just community services that are important. And yes, some people, our taxes, and this is where politics come in. Our taxes are what fund all these things, or fill the potholes, or put in a new sidewalk on a new street, or whatever the case is. And so, yes, that's where politics, or even left versus right, or Republican versus Democrat, in terms of what's the proper form of taxation and what's the proper form of what's the proper service level to provide. So that's obviously where some of the left versus right stuff happens. But for the most part, I truly believe that. So here in Murray, we have 5 people on our city council. I think all 5 of them want to see Murray thrive. And nobody likes a huge tax increase, not even the tax and spend liberals that Republicans will want. And nobody thinks that we should cut all services either. So I think there's, a lot of middle ground at the city level. And I was very impressed and encouraged when I ran for city council. I started going to all the city council meetings, planning commission meetings, and taking notes so that then I could use that information to say, hey, look, I'm an informed candidate. But not only a candidate, but an informed citizen that cares about what's the zoning change going to be on this new development that's going up. I have one literally in my backyard we've got townhomes and a mix of single family homes. And that was a compromise because developer wanted all townhomes because they could get more profit that way. The community and the neighborhood were concerned about density and traffic or property values. And so there was a nice little compromise. Nice in my opinion, not so nice in people that didn't want any townhomes.
But isn't that what it means to be
yeah.
in a city and be a good neighbor? It means that you compromise on some things.
Well, yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. And Murray is in a kind of unique spot. We're right here in the middle of the valley. We're not
the Salt Lake
we
Valley.
Can't grow out.
Yeah,
we're right in the Salt Lake Valley. We can't grow out. If we're going to grow, or if we're going to increase our tax base, or whatever the case is, if there's any growth, it's got to kind of go up. And so that's why homes make sense, or lower density. But they don't. That doesn't necessarily mean. And here's a little civic lesson that I learned from going to the city council meetings. It doesn't mean you have to throw in apartment buildings in every vacant lot. It means we've got the tracks line, we've got front runner lines, we have in Murray, we have 5 different freeway exits that make us kind of a transit hub. And that's where apartment buildings or townhomes make the most sense. We don't want to pave over Wheeler Farm and put up apartments just because there's empty space there. We want to grow responsibly. And so those are some of the weird little things that I learned running for city council.
Well, and what a great opportunity for you to learn those things about your community. I think that was my favorite part about running for city council as well, is I too tried to knock every door at least twice. And I just felt like I explored, because I've lived in Sugar House for a long time, but I kept finding pockets in my neighborhood where I was like, man, this is so cool. Like, I didn't know this existed here, or I didn't know what that was there. Like, I stumbled across the neighborhood Hive. I don't know if you've been there. They're on like 21st and 2100 East and 2100 South.
Yeah.
And they're like a maker's market, right?
Right. I think I've driven past it, but I haven't stopped in just because it's not my neighborhood. And if I'm ever there, it's because I'm going through it to get to some other place. But maybe I'll have to stop in.
Well, love those guys. They're good friends of mine. But I also think that the stuff that they're doing is really important because it's about building community. It's about having a central hub for
Absolutely.
people who are doing small businesses. And I didn't know that that existed until I started running for office. And there were other places like that where I was like, man, this street is beautiful, or the infrastructure here is really cool. Like there were some interesting like pocket parks that I hadn't known about that I
Hmm.
discovered, and some fun businesses that are tucked away. And it makes you feel like you're more connected to your place. And I think that's really important. That I think the kids say go touch some grass. And I think being a candidate and knocking on doors is a pretty good way to touch some grass.
I think so, and touching grass can be literal or figurative. Usually,
Yeah.
when you're seeing it, it's more of a figurative thing. But yeah, I was able to get out and touch some grass that was not my grass; it was other people's grass, and learn
Same.
their experience. And so it was very beneficial. I feel like I've not only while I lost, I learned so much and met so many people. I've run into them at the grocery store
Yeah.
or at the library, where people say, "Oh, I know you. You ran for city council," stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
not that I feel like I'm a celebrity or anything. It's nice to know that I made an impact, and nobody's ever said anything negative about me running for city council. They've said thank you a
Yeah.
lot, and
Yeah.
it's because, like we said earlier, it takes a certain amount of bravery to put your name on a ballot. My wife, brilliant woman, she'll never put her name on a ballot. She's an introvert. I'm a little bit more of an extrovert, so it wasn't as big a thing for me. But there's a lot of people, again, like I said earlier, that should consider running for office. Maybe you won't, but maybe you will, because I think there's a lot of people that, if you're a PTA president or even involved in your PTA, if you go to the library board or something like that, you are putting in the time and energy to try to improve your community. And there's so many people that do that. And I would love to see them become more involved. I know time is a huge consideration. Nobody
You said
thinks
time.
time.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
because
I heard crime and I was
no,
like, sorry, would you clarify?
sorry. Time is a consideration because some people think that it's a lot of time
Yeah.
to be on the city council, and it can be. I think Murray city council people maybe put in 20 to 30 hours a week and not for a ton of money. They have a lot of meetings and committees that they go to. They have emails and phone calls from constituents. So it is something that, unfortunately, not everybody says, I have the bandwidth to do that.
Or the
I'm hope,
ability or the financial,
yeah,
wherewithal to do it. And I definitely think that you're touching on something that in my prosperity pillar is something that I think a lot about. Like, how do we create an opportunity for different voices, different community members to rise up and represent us? Because I think that's when you get the most innovative, unique, and interesting
right.
solutions and things that you
The,
haven't thought about before as a community.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, in some cities, there are neighborhood councils or whatever,
Yeah, I'm
that
a trustee on the
that
Sugar House Community Council.
those are just volunteer organizations. You're not getting paid a lot. You don't have, but they're
Not
also
getting
not
paid
a huge,
anything. I give
right.
them my time for free.
Exactly. And it's not a huge amount of time for those community councils, but it's a chance for people to communicate ideas and concerns, or thoughts, and and express their observations. Like, hey, did you know that? A lot of times, if people don't say it, an issue just doesn't get brought up.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
definitely.
if there's a huge pothole on a street that's never phoned into the public works department, it doesn't get filled in.
Yeah.
So it's important that people are able to communicate those observations and their concerns. And I think so. Yeah, Salt Lake City has a lot of those community councils. Murray doesn't, and that's something that I thought in my head. Maybe we should, have some volunteer community councils that work independently, but communicate with the city, They could even just be, 5 people that represent like we have five, like I said, we've got 5 city council districts. Maybe we pull people from each corner of those districts, and once a month or whatever, it doesn't even have to be a meeting. It can be, but maybe they just email each other and say, hey, what's going on? What are some of the thoughts and feelings
Well, and
happening?
what a great
We have
opportunity for the Salt Lake County Secretary of the Democratic Party to put forth a
Yes.
vision.
So, yeah. And right now we at the county party level, that's another hat that I'm wearing. Right now it's kind of the main hat that I'm wearing is we're trying to elect Democrats to various offices. This year is more of a statewide and countywide rather than
Yeah.
municipal.
Municipal races happen in odd numbered years, right?
Right. Typically, yes. But so, yeah, right now we're focused on the Salt Lake County Democratic Party. We're focused on the county council. We're focused on the sheriff, the district attorney's race, assessor, auditor, various races that we want to, because we're Democrats, we want to make sure that we elect Democrats. And that means, right now I'm communicating. I help out, not exclusively, but I do a lot of the social media for the Salt Lake County Democratic Party. So that means we're sharing events, whether I'll mention Lanny Chapman just because she is the county clerk. She's unopposed, so I don't have to feel worried about endorsing her. But if she were to have a fundraiser, we can share that with people. If she shared it by herself, that's great, but she might only have 200 or 300 people on her Facebook page. We've got 3,000 or 4,000. If we can share that in just, again, one of those social media things, as many channels, as many eyeballs as you can. And we want to share the good messages. It's too easy to be negative on social media. So while we sometimes will be negative, especially when Kevin O'Leary wants to build a 40,000 acre data center on a dying Great Salt Lake, we'll go negative. But when it comes to here's some things happening in our community, well, we want to celebrate the good things because the world is not exclusively bad right now. It feels like it sometimes because that's what leads. I mean, we're going back to my news days. If it bleeds, it leads. We don't want to exclusively say the world is screwed. People just, the sky is falling. If we do that, it doesn't do, it's important to share information that is important, but it does not lift people. And so we want to spend our time lifting people when we can and when we should. So that's some of the stuff that I do as a secretary. Some of the boring stuff I do is I take notes during the executive council meeting. So I sit there and just type up, the boring minutes of the meeting and then say all in favor of accepting the meeting minutes. So I do some of that stuff.
So all in favor of ending this interview, say aye.
Yeah, basically along those lines. Yeah. So, but there's so much going on locally that it's important and that we share and do and focus on the good stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff. So
that's great, Jared. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And it's so great to know that our Salt Lake County party is doing a lot of work. So our final question to all of our guests, what is one thing that's brought you joy, sparked curiosity, or deepened prosperity for you recently?
All right. I'll just talk about my grandkids. Yay. I have 3 wonderful grandchildren. My oldest is 8 years old. She just graduated or wrapped up 2nd grade. My number 2 just finished up kindergarten. So his name is Oliver. He's 6 years old, and he is a reading machine. He read the Fablehaven series last month.
Oh, they're so cute.
But he's 6 years old, and he cranked out like 400-page books in a week.
But Fablehaven is hard to resist. Like, it's got trolls and it's everything you want.
So those are some of the things. And then my baby granddaughter, her name is Nora. She is 2.5 years old, and she loves books more than anything. And for her birthday, I got her a little sweatshirt that says, she takes it to the library for story time. She wears it every week that she goes there, and it says, "Read to me, you peasant." And it has a bunch of books on it. And so she wears that, and
So are you the peasant in this situation?
yes. Every time she sees me, she doesn't want to watch TV. She doesn't want to play games. She runs over to our supply of kids' books and asks me to read them. So,
cute.
and she will, because she knows what the shirt says, she will say, "Read to me, you peasant," and throws a book at me and climbs up on my lap. So that's what
great.
brings me joy. My grandchildren are just, they love books, and I'm super stoked that that's what they are obsessed with. It's wonderful to watch them learn, because they're so freaking smart.
That's great. Jared Eborn, thank you for joining me around the counter.
Thank you, Molly.